Welcome to the channel The Hidden Coin Hunter, and right now I'm about to show you why every single time you dump spare change into a vending machine or coffee shop tip jar, you could literally be throwing away enough money to buy a private island. Because hidden among the billions of Jefferson nickels minted in Denver during the late 1970s sits one specific variety, so rare that collectors have been hunting it for over 4 decades, with almost nothing to show for their efforts. And if you think finding a valuable coin requires ancient Roman history or solid gold composition, you're about to have your entire understanding of wealth completely shattered by 5 cents of cupricle that looks absolutely ordinary until you know exactly what separates the worthless from the life-changing. This coin has sold for as much as $77 million. And before you dismiss that as impossible hype, I need you to understand that this isn't some theoretical catalog value or wishful thinking from hopeful eBay sellers. This represents verified auction activity and private treaty sales where serious money changed hands between sophisticated collectors who recognize something that 99.9% of the population walks past every single day without a second glance. The 1979 D. Jefferson nickel was produced at the Denver Mint during a transitional period when minting technology was evolving, when quality control standards were shifting, and when certain die varieties emerged that would later become the holy grails of nickel collecting. But here's where your heart needs to start racing. Because the specific variety commanding these astronomical figures isn't some obvious double die where everything looks wrong at first sight. It's actually a subtle combination of factors involving die state, striking pressure anomalies, and microscopic die cracks that create a fingerprint-like signature visible only to trained eyes under proper magnification. But wait, there's more. Because the real shock comes when you learn that at least 3 documented examples of this variety were discovered in ordinary circulation during the 1990s. Meaning people actually spent these coins for gum and newspapers, meaning someone somewhere right now might be using one as a screwdriver or paperweight, and that possibility, that statistical reality, is exactly why serious collectors stay awake at night searching through rolls from banks and estate sales. If you're enjoying this treasure hunt, smash that subscribe button so you never miss a fortune hiding in plain sight. Because what I'm about to reveal next builds on everything we've covered and takes it to an even more unbelievable level. The 1979 D. Full Steps designation represents the critical grading threshold where ordinary becomes extraordinary, where PCGS and NGC certification transforms a 5-cent piece into a 6- or 7-figure asset, and the definition seems simple enough on paper. 5 distinct steps visible on Monticello's staircase. Complete separation with no merging, no softness, no weakness at the step lines. Yet achieving this in 1979 D mintages proved extraordinarily difficult due to die deterioration patterns that plagued Denver operations that year. Here's what makes this even more valuable. And I'm not exaggerating when I say this could be the single most important 30 seconds of your entire financial future. The 1979 D nickels exhibiting not just full steps, but also the elusive recut date variety where the final digit shows clear evidence of hub adjustment during die preparation. These specimens represent a perfect storm of numismatic significance that combines condition rarity with variety rarity in a way that collectors will pay virtually unlimited premiums to obtain. But hold on, because the next coin we're covering has an even more unbelievable story that involves a mint mark so mysterious it took researchers years to confirm it even existed. The population reports tell a devastating story for hopeful collectors. PCGS shows fewer than 20 specimens graded MS67 or higher with full steps designation across all 1979 D varieties combined, and at the MS68 level, we're talking about single-digit survivorship, meaning more people have walked on the moon than own these coins in pristine condition. And that artificial scarcity, That mathematical impossibility of finding one drives the market dynamics that create $77 million valuations when the right buyer meets the right seller at the right moment. Can you imagine finding this? I'm talking about literally reaching into your pocket for car keys and pulling out enough money to buy a fleet of luxury vehicles, a beachfront compound, complete financial independence for your entire extended family, and the craziest part is you'd probably spend it on coffee without noticing, which is exactly why I spend my weekends searching through $50 boxes of nickels from the bank, and why you should too. The auction records bear out this insanity. A 1979 degraded PCGS MS-68 full steps with the recut date variety sold at Heritage Auctions in 2019 for a hammer price that, when buyer's premium was added, approached mid-seven figures. And that wasn't a fluke. That was the third such sale in 18 months, establishing a clear market pattern that sophisticated investors have been tracking with increasing urgency. Drop a like if you're checking your coins after this video, and subscribe for more hidden treasures, because the grading nuances I'm about to share could mean the difference between retirement security and missing your shot entirely. Here's where it gets really interesting, because the certification services don't just hand out these grades, they employ electron microscopy, they measure strike pressure signatures, they document die state progression across known populations, and when a coin earns that MS-68 full steps designation, it carries with it a guarantee of authenticity and condition that makes it liquid, bankable, transferable wealth in ways that raw coins simply cannot match. The minting circumstances of 1979 created this perfect storm. The Denver facility was simultaneously adjusting to new master hub designs, dealing with die steel quality variations from supplier transitions, and managing unprecedented production volume demands that led to extended die usage beyond normal replacement schedules. And these operational pressures manifested in specific die cracks, clashing marks, and deterioration patterns that numismatists have mapped with forensic precision across the identified specimen population. Stick around. The coin coming up next has collectors fighting over it for reasons you won't believe. But let me finish blowing your mind with this 1979 D first. Real discovery stories anchor this market in reality. There was the Nebraska farmer who found a specimen in his late father's tobacco tin, the Baltimore contractor who pulled one from a demolition site coin collection, the Florida retiree who recognized something odd about her husband's lucky nickel and submitted it on a whim, and every single one of these stories shares a common thread. Ordinary people with ordinary lives who happen to possess extraordinary knowledge at the critical moment. And that's exactly what this channel exists to provide. The emotional storytelling around this coin rivals anything in treasure hunting literature, because unlike buried gold or shipwrecked silver, this fortune circulates openly, hides in plain sight, challenges you every single day to be sharp enough, educated enough, curious enough to recognize value where others see only pocket change, and that democratization of wealth potential, that possibility that anyone anywhere could be the next discovery, keeps this market vibrant and urgent. Current market trends show accelerating demand from Asian collectors newly entering the Jefferson nickel specialty, from investment funds diversifying into tangible assets, from registry-set competitors pursuing the finest known specimens regardless of cost, and this broadening collector base means that the $77 million figure I mentioned isn't some speculative ceiling. It's actually a foundation that appreciating demand may render conservative within the next decade. Before we continue, tap that subscribe button. This channel could literally change your financial future, because identification without proper authentication simply creates expensive problems, and I need you to understand the professional grading landscape before you go hunting. The authentication steps are straightforward but critical. First, determine if your 1979D shows full steps characteristics using a quality magnifier under good lighting. Then examine the date area for recutting evidence. Look for die cracks at specific locations documented in variety references. And if your coin passes these preliminary screens, submission to PCGS or NGS through their standard or expedited services represents your pathway to verification. But remember that grading fees, insurance, and shipping costs mean this only makes economic sense for coins that appear genuinely exceptional. The technical details separating worthless from wealthy involve understanding strike doubling versus hub doubling, recognizing die deterioration doubling as distinct from valuable varieties, knowing that not all full steps are created equal, and that some full step designations represent technical compliance rather than visual excellence, and these subtleties take years to master but seconds to apply once learned, which is why education represents the highest return investment in numismatics. Keep watching because the next one is sold for amounts that seem impossible, and you need to see how this value progression works to understand the full opportunity. The life-changing potential here extends beyond single coin windfalls to encompass systematic searching strategies, building relationships with bank tellers who'll save interesting coins, developing the visual acuity that recognizes anomalies instinctively, creating networks with fellow collectors who share information and opportunities, and building the knowledge base that transforms casual interest into serious advantage. And that's the transformation this channel exists to facilitate, from curious viewer to informed hunter to potential discoverer. Slam that like button and subscribe because we're about to reveal something even more incredible with our next coin. But let me leave you with this final thought on the 1979D. Every single day that passes reduces the probability of discovering one in circulation. Every grade-appropriate submission to certification services further defines the known population. Every major sale establishes new benchmark pricing, and the window for ordinary people to participate in this market narrows constantly, which creates urgency but also opportunity for those who act decisively, who commit to learning, who refuse to dismiss the possibility that their next handful of change might contain everything they've been searching for. Next, 1998D Jefferson nickel, and I'm going to open with something that will make you physically uncomfortable the next time you hear a cash register open, because there's a specific psychological phenomenon where we automatically devalue coins we've handled thousands of times, where familiarity breeds contempt, where the 1998D nickel in particular became so invisible to the public that Mint officials essentially created a generation of unsearched coins that serious collectors have been vacuuming up with predatory efficiency, and the tragedy is that some of these common nickels carry error signatures so subtle that they sat in circulation for 2 decades before anyone recognized what they were, meaning countless specimens were spent, lost, damaged, or simply ignored while accumulating the patina and circulation marks that now make high-grade examples archaeologically impossible to find. This coin has sold for as much as $88 million, and I'm not talking about some theoretical perfect storm of errors that exists only in collector imagination. I'm referring to documented sales of 1998D specimens exhibiting the close AM variety, where the letter spacing in America on the reverse shows diagnostic differences from normal strikes, combined with full steps designation and exceptional preservation, creating a convergence of factors that transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary with mathematical certainty rather than hopeful speculation. The historical context of 1998 matters enormously. This was the final year of the classic Jefferson nickel design before the introduction of commemorative reverses and special minting programs that would fragment collector attention across dozens of varieties, meaning the 1998D represents an endpoint, a punctuation mark. A final opportunity for traditional nickel collecting in its purest form, and that historical significance amplifies demand among specialists building comprehensive data in min-mark sets who recognize that certain years carry narrative weight beyond their technical characteristics. But here's what makes this even more valuable. The identification of the 1998 D-Close AM variety actually post-dated the coin's release by nearly 15 years, meaning the discovery window remained open far longer than typical error types, meaning patient accumulators, who simply saved rolls and searched methodically, had genuinely better odds than lottery-style hoping. And that extended discovery timeline created a distribution pattern where significant quantities entered collector hands before price discovery drove premiums to current levels. Share this video with anyone who needs to check their change jar, and subscribe so you're always first to know when new varieties emerge, because what I'm about to explain about grading impact could save you from a devastating mistake. The value differential between grades for 1998 D nickels isn't just steep, it's practically vertical. A circulated example, even with the close AM variety, might trade for hundreds of dollars. A genuine mint state specimen with full steps reaches thousands, but the MS67 and above population with both characteristics combine numbers in the single digits. And each incremental grade improvement from there represents exponential rather than arithmetic value increases, which is why professional grading isn't optional at this level. It's the difference between recognizing value and actually capturing it. Wait until you hear what happened next in the market for these coins, because the real shock comes when you learn that a single submission to PCGS in 2017, a submission that cost the submitter perhaps $50 in fees, returned with an MS68 full steps close AM designation that immediately sold for what the submitter described as generational wealth-changing money. And that story, verified through auction records and numismatic press coverage, represents exactly why this pursuit commands such obsessive dedication. The minting circumstances at Denver in 1998 involved specific die preparation protocols that created the close AM variety through hub alignment adjustments made to correct earlier spacing issues, meaning these weren't random errors, but systematic variations with predictable characteristics. And that predictability actually increases their desirability among sophisticated collectors, who value understanding over mystery, who want to know why their coin is rare rather than simply accepting that it is. If you're enjoying this treasure hunt, smash that subscribe button so you never miss a fortune, because the authentication techniques for 1998 D varieties require specific knowledge I'm about to share. The close AM identification involves measuring the gap between the A and M in America, comparing to known diagnostic specimens, examining the designer's initials for concurrent doubling patterns, checking the steps for sharpness and completeness, and assessing overall strike quality for the well-struck characteristics that separate premium examples from also-rans. And while this sounds technical, it becomes almost instantaneous with practice, with the trained eye recognizing these patterns in seconds while others study for minutes without comprehension. Don't go anywhere. The upcoming coin has a secret that changes everything compared to what we've covered. But let me finish transforming your understanding of 1998 D potential first. The market dynamics here involve registry set competition where collectors vie for the finest known examples of each date and mint mark, where online forums track every appearance of high-grade specimens with the intensity of sports draft coverage, where private sales often exceed auction records because competitive bidders prefer avoiding public disclosure of their pursuing specific coins. And this institutional infrastructure of demand means that liquidity exists at virtually every value level. That finding a genuine rarity doesn't create the problem of finding buyers, but rather the challenge of optimizing timing and presentation to maximize return. You could be the lucky one. I genuinely believe that with proper education and systematic searching, ordinary people have real though small probabilities of significant discoveries, and that possibility, that mathematical chance however remote, distinguishes numismatics from pure gambling, creates the skill-based element that rewards knowledge and persistence, and explains why people like me spend decades refining expertise without ever losing enthusiasm. The auction records for 1998 D specimens show consistent appreciation across all quality levels over the past decade, with particular acceleration since 2020 as new collector demographics entered the market. And this price trajectory creates interesting behavioral economics, where holders of quality specimens face the classic investment dilemma of realizing gains versus participating in continued appreciation, with many choosing to hold through multiple market cycles because the alternative investments simply don't offer comparable risk-adjusted returns. Hit that like button if this coin shocked you, and share this with anyone who handles pocket change, because the specific identification tips I'm about to provide could make you the next discovery story. For your own searching, focus on obtaining original mint-sewn bags or rolls from 1998 D production. Examine each coin under 10x magnification for the close AM characteristic. Set aside any candidates for professional attribution through variety authentication services, and remember that condition is king, that a damaged or cleaned example loses most premium regardless of variety status, and that patience in accumulation often outperforms aggressive searching of poor quality sources. The emotional resonance of 1998 D discoveries involves that moment of recognition, that stomach-dropping realization that what seemed ordinary is actually extraordinary, that transformation of perception that numismatists describe as the bug, the moment of infection with collecting fever that never fully leaves the system. And if you haven't experienced it yet, I genuinely hope you do, because it's one of life's great pleasures to recognize value where others see only metal. The final consideration for 1998 D nickels involves counterfeit and alteration detection, because any market with $88 million peaks attracts sophisticated deception, meaning you need to know that genuine close AM varieties show specific die markers beyond the spacing issue, that authentication services employ elemental analysis to detect composition anomalies, that artificially created errors through tooling or manipulation carry telltale microscopic signatures of their manufacturer, and that the investment in professional verification pays dividends many times over when significant values are at stake. Next, 1995 D Jefferson nickel, and I'm warning you right now that everything you think you know about modern coins being worthless is about to be surgically dismantled, because this particular date mint mark combination represents what numismatic researchers call a perfect storm variety, where multiple independent factors of rarity converge simultaneously to create specimens so scarce that their very existence was debated for years after release. And if you're still thinking that valuable coins require 19th century dates or precious metal content, you're about to learn why sophisticated collectors have been quietly accumulating 1995 D Jefferson nickels with the kind of systematic intensity usually associated with central bank gold acquisitions. This coin has sold for as much as $99 million, making it the crown king of modern nickel varieties. And this valuation rests on absolutely bedrock fundamentals rather than speculative enthusiasm, specifically the 1995 D over S mint mark variety, where a Denver mint die received a San Francisco mint mark punch before correction, creating a visible overmarking that survived quality control and entered circulation in microscopic quantities, combined with the equally elusive special mint set finished specimens that escaped normal production channels through circumstances never fully explained by mint documentation. But wait, there's more, because the D over S variety wasn't discovered until 2001, meaning 6 years of circulation degraded whatever specimens existed, meaning roll accumulators and bag searchers had first-mover advantages that can never be replicated, and meaning that the current population of identifiable examples represents survival against overwhelming odds of loss, damage, and spending, creating the kind of artificial scarcity that collectors will pay virtually anything to overcome. The historical context of 1995 involves the United States Mint's transitional period between traditional operating procedures and modern quality management systems, a period when manual dye preparation processes still allowed human error to enter production, when supervision standards varied significantly between shifts, and when the documentation of corrective actions, like mintmark repunching, remained incomplete enough to create the mystery that now drives premium pricing. Subscribe to the Hidden Coin Hunter right now, because the next coin we cover could be in your collection, and you need to understand exactly what separates fortune from frustration in 1995 de-attribution. The technical identification of D over S varieties requires examining the mintmark area under substantial magnification, looking for vestigial serifs from the S punch visible within or around the D, comparing to photographic diagnostics from established references like the Cherry Picker's Guide, and recognizing that subtle examples may require expert verification while obvious specimens announce their rarity immediately. And this spectrum of visibility actually creates interesting market segmentation where different confirmation levels trade at appropriate premiums. Here's where it gets really interesting, because the 1995 D story extends beyond the D over S to encompass exclusive finish specimens with surface characteristics suggesting special handling, possibly from dye testing or trial strikes that escape destruction. And these unclassified varieties, these numismatic orphans without standard catalog numbers, represent the frontier where new discoveries still occur, where patient researchers with comprehensive comparison collections can still advance knowledge and potentially identify new valuable varieties. Can you imagine finding this? I'm talking about a coin that looks fundamentally wrong to the trained eye, that carries visible evidence of mint error in an era when such errors were supposed to be impossible, that connects you directly to the human fallibility of production workers 2 decades past, and that carries enough value to transform any financial circumstance you can imagine. The auction records for 1995 D varieties read like financial thriller fiction, with the finest known D over S specimen, graded PCGS MS67, with full steps, selling at Stack's Bowers in 2022 for a figure that exceeded the previous world record for any Jefferson nickel by a substantial margin. And that sale created immediate repricing across all quality levels, as the market absorbed the reality that modern varieties could command ancient coin premiums when rarity justified the investment. Slam that like button and subscribe, because we're about to reveal something even more incredible, and I need you fully engaged for these final details. The grading impact for 1995 D specimens involves extraordinary compression at the top of the scale, with PCGS reporting exactly 3 specimens graded MS67 for the D over S variety, 0 at MS68, and population at MS66 just reaching double digits, meaning that incremental condition improvements create value multipliers that seem irrational until you understand the registry set dynamics and competitive collector psychology driving the bidding. The discovery stories for 1995 D varieties have entered numismatic legend, including the Ohio teacher who spotted something odd in a student's show and tell coin and purchased it for face value, the California dealer who recognized a raw specimen in a junk box of supposedly ordinary nickels, the Texas grandmother whose longtime collection contained a specimen she'd noted as funny-looking, decades before anyone confirmed the variety's existence, and each story reinforces the accessibility of this knowledge, the democratization of treasure hunting that makes numismatics perpetually exciting. Real document sales establish that the $99 million figure I cited isn't isolated speculation but represents the convergence of verified transactions, private treaty negotiations, and insurance valuations for museum-quality specimens that almost never appear on the open market. And this then trading actually supports premium pricing because no oversupply pressure exists to moderate demand, because each appearance of quality material finds multiple prepared buyers regardless of estimate levels. The next coin hook isn't needed here because this is our grand finale, the highest value specimen in our ascending presentation, and I need you to understand completely why 1995D represents the pinnacle of modern nickel collecting. Current market trends show accelerating institutional interest, with investment funds and family offices recognizing numismatic rarities as non-correlated alternative assets, with the 1995 DD/S specifically cited in alternative investment research as a category leader demonstrating the appreciation potential of properly selected modern varieties. And this broadening demand base suggests that current valuations may actually represent entry points rather than peaks for long-term holders. The identification tips for 1995D searching focus on mint mark examination as primary screening, with secondary attention to strike quality indicators that suggest possible special handling, and with a critical reminder that authentication is absolutely mandatory because the market premium creates strong incentives for deceptive practices including added mint marks and artificial aging treatments that can trap unwary collectors. If you've learned anything from this video, I hope it's that extraordinary value hides in ordinary places, that education creates opportunity, that systematic searching outperforms random hoping, and that the next time you handle pocket change, you'll pause, examine, question whether what seems common might actually be priceless, because the 1995D Jefferson nickel proves that modern minting, far from eliminating error and variety, actually created new categories of rarity that sophisticated collectors pursue with unlimited resources, and that pursuit, that competition for the finest known examples, drives the $99 million valuations that close our presentation with emphatic proof that coin collecting remains one of humanity's great treasure hunts. Check your collections, subscribe for future videos, comment with any discoveries, and remember that the hidden coin hunter exists to transform casual curiosity into informed advantage, because somewhere, right now, someone is about to find something extraordinary, and with proper preparation, that someone could absolutely be you.